Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of, I guess I'm going to call this the Howard Show. Don't really have a real, any kind of written out plan, business plan, like I never do. But this little first episode is going to be my story that people have been asking me for on how I got to where I'm at today in real estate with, our company and selling the company. I wanted to get Riz on here, but the time it would take for her to get her hair and makeup and all that done, just not going to happen. And I wake up with the sun. So I like to do this early in the morning when things are quiet, my phone's not blowing up. So maybe I'll get her on here in the future. She can kind of tell her story, but that's the point of this first episode, is to kind of get the story out there, to inspire you, motivate you, whatever it is you're looking for to get started the way we did. And that's kind of the biggest, I think, hold up I see with people is it's just getting started. We're going to talk about a lot of things and over in the near future, but I also want to bring in a lot of people that have helped me get to where I'm at and people that I actually value their opinion, so you can hear their story as well, not just mine. Whether it be people in business, real estate, friends of mine that were investing in real estate while in the military, and people that just have done very, very well for themselves in business. Let's see. I'm also probably going to use this. I'm actually going to use this as a great way to write off some tax expenses. I actually plan on traveling to go see a lot of people that have helped me along the way. Fly there, sit down, do this little mobile interview. I actually bought this whole little mobile setup kit for that reason. Because like I said, I want to get their story out there as well, and it gives me an excuse to go see some really good friends of mine. But yeah, so we're going to talk about a lot of stuff, definitely like tax write-offs and things like that, like having a good CPA and how to set your Airbnb up to make it where it is just crushing the competition. And that was the big thing that really set our business apart from everybody else's. We were a small company, right? Boutique, whatever you want to call it. We usually stayed under that 50 houses for management. But when you would look at our rental income on these properties, we were just crushing it. And that's because we knew how to set our properties up to be a good Airbnb. Whereas a lot of companies just, you would think it'd be that simple, but it's not. They're so big production, they just don't have the ability or the time or the skill set to set these properties up good like this. Because they might have 1,000 properties and things just get lost in the sauce, and they just can't focus on it. So like I said, this first episode is going to be talking about Riz and I's journey to where we got to where we're at, and let's just get right into it. So for people that a lot of people don't know, so I was born in Louisiana, Houma, Louisiana, and then raised in Southeast Texas. Don't come from money at all. My dad's an electrician, and I literally was raised in a barn. People always think I'm joking, even Riz when we first got married, but I'm like, no, literally was raised in a barn. So when people would make that joke to me, like, oh, why'd you leave the door open when you were raised in a barn or something? And I was like, well, actually I was, for real. So my trailer burnt down when I was 11, and then we moved into the barn. And I literally lived in the hayloft. That's what it was. I had an extension ladder to my room until my dad eventually built a staircase, and I didn't even have walls. It just had a little curtain up. So that was my background until I joined the military. Riz's background, same thing. She doesn't come from money. No wealthy, real estate developer parents. She didn't even speak English till age 11. Moved to Guam, I think around that time. And, she joined the military, not even as a citizen, at age 19. And then 4 years later, she wound up getting her citizenship, which a lot of people don't realize you can actually join the U.S. military and not be a citizen. And then, we met and been going on 14 years next month. But I can tell you the business we created would not be where it's at today without her. We each have our strengths and weaknesses that helped us get to where we're at. in developing the business. So how I got started in real estate was 2012. Get stationed at Herbert Field, and Riz wanted to buy a house. So we just bought a little, three bed, 2 bath house in Navarre. Nothing crazy. I really wish I had listened to her earlier, a couple years prior, because when we were at McCord in Washington State, this was 2008 through 2010, she wanted to buy a house. And I was just like very against it. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. I was like, I don't plan on living in Washington when I retire from the military. And I just want to rent a house and try to save as much money as I can, a couple $100 a month if I could. So that was very stupid of me. I didn't understand real estate and how to build wealth and things like that. And this is also during the housing market collapse where housing was so cheap. I could have picked up these properties dirt cheap. And that's what my buddy Brandon did. He was a big part of my journey as well in real estate. He would always buy a property wherever he got stationed, and then he would either keep that property as a rental or he would flip it. He bought, I think, that house in 2008 in Washington, and then I think in 2017 he sold it and made hundreds of thousands, plus all the rent he did for like 5-6 years on it. So to all my military people out there, like, buy a house. I don't care if you hate the location, buy it. Like, you might as well be paying your own mortgage instead of paying it for someone else. Like, just buy it, turn it into a rental property, whatever, in the future. But buy real estate. So 2012, first house in Navarre. Had a really awesome neighbor that lived across the street from me. Very business savvy guy. I mean, this guy made, tens, if not hundreds of millions in business. And he actually developed like half of Destin. Like, he built it back in the early days before Destin was basically even Destin. And I would listen to him talk, like I was very close with him, still very close with him today. And I would just listen to him talk, and I was always like, wow, this guy's really like he knows his stuff. Like, it's cool that he built, like, we go to Destin, he'd be like, oh, I built that condo. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. So he kind of like planted little seeds in my brain, right? And then I had awesome mentor, Lando. Awesome guy, very well known in the controller community. And I mean, the guy talks and everyone just listens because he's a funny guy. But he was talking about, I think he had like 4 or 5 rental properties in the Destin, Fort Walton area. And he was like, well, that's my retirement plan. Because he was like, I can't retire off as an E7. It's not enough money. But he's like, I got these 5 rental properties making money. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So that kind of got my wheels spinning a little bit. I was like, you know what? I wouldn't mind having some rental properties one day. So around the same time, Riz and I, we love to go out on the boat. And we were tired of paying for storage and trailering it. So we're like, we should buy a condo in Destin with a boat slip. So I just did my 3rd re-enlistment in 2014, got my bonus, and we're looking for a condo now in Destin. And I meet this awesome guy who actually winds up later on becoming my first real estate broker, Jonathan Hughes. And I'm still very close to this guy today. This guy is just, he's hilarious, good dude, and just a wealth of knowledge. Like, this guy came from nothing and turned himself into a multi-millionaire. And I just, I really just connected with him. And, he had just a lot of great knowledge. So this condo we buy eventually becomes Destin Charms. We buy this condo right on the Destin Harbor, $252,000, $500. And everyone's telling me how much I overpaid for it. They're just like, oh, your realtor took you, blah, blah, blah. Just no one can ever be happy for you, right? And they're just like, I can't believe you bought that condo. That's so stupid. My neighbors are telling me this that live there. Like, oh, you overpaid. We bought ours for like $180, whatever it was, 5 years ago. So we remodeled the condo very nice for ourselves because it was no intentions of it being a rental property. We were going to live there. So we remodeled it like Very, very nice. And a few months later, now one of my best friends, Eric, he actually buys the condo below me. And this guy just crushes real estate. Like, he's a big real estate investor and has been for, long, long time, longer than I have. And at this time, real estate's the furthest thing from my mind. So he buys a condo below me. I meet him and his business partner, and just kind of get to know him a little bit. So the next summer of 16, Riz and I decided we're going to go to Europe for 30 days, take a vacation, because we hadn't had one in years. And he says to me, he goes, "Hey, John, what are you going to do with your condo when you go to Europe?" And these guys are into Airbnbs and vacation rentals. And I say, "I'm not going to do anything with my condo." And he goes, "You want to make $2,500 a week?" And I'm like, "No, yeah, like doing what? Like, who are we killing?" And he was just like, "No, like you can rent your condo $2,500 a week. This place is so nice." And I'm like, "Dude, I don't even make $2,500 in 2 weeks in the military. Like, how is this place going to rent?" I'm like, "You mean like $2,500 a month?" And he's like, "No, $2,500 a week." He goes, "Put it up on VRBO." He goes, "Guaranteed it'll book, $350 a night." And I said, "Okay." So I talked to Riz about it, and Riz is like very against it. She's like, "I don't want anybody in our condo. That's our condo. I don't want people there. This isn't a hotel." And I was like, "Yeah, but he's saying, we can do, like $10,000 in a month while we're gone in Europe." And she's like, "No." She's like, I don't want to deal with it. She's like, "People are going to come in there and, destroy the condo." And I was like, So I thought about it for a few days, doing some research on it. And I tell Riz, I'm like, we're going to do this. Like, I want to do this. I was like, we need the money. It'll pay for our European vacation. And she's just like, "Fine. If you want to do it, do it. I don't want no involvement. I don't want to hear anything. I don't want nothing to do with it." And I said, "Okay." So me not knowing anything about vacation rentals, I put it up on VRBO and TripAdvisor. And within 3 days, this thing books out for 6 weeks straight, which is kind of a problem because I'm only going to be gone for 4 weeks. And, now I have to go stay at a buddy's house for 2 weeks when I get back. But it books out $2,500 a week. And Riz and I are just like, we're just shocked. We're like, how did this even happen? And how come people aren't talking about this? Like, why isn't no one telling the military about this? Because we're just, 10 minutes down the road. How come no neighbors are talking about this? And we were shocked. So I started talking to my neighbors who do vacation with their properties, but their properties are very outdated, and all their furniture looks like a thrift store. And they would tell me like, "Oh yeah, I make somewhere between like 18 to, maybe a good year, like 23,000, 25,000 a year." And I'm like, I don't get it. I just made $15,000 in 6 weeks. So we're just kind of like, okay, you know what? We're going to rent this condo full time with the expectation that, maybe we'll make $30,000, something like that. Because our mortgage and everything was like $18,000 for the year. So we're like, if we can just cover the expenses, we're winning. That's all we wanted. And so we move out of the condo and we buy a house in Miramar. And the condo is just killing it. I mean, it's renting year round. Like, it's renting even in January. And neighbors are telling me like, "Oh, this is never going to happen." People in the real estate industry are like, "Oh, you'll never rent your property in the winter. You'll only get spring and summer, and that's it." And it's going like 20 days a month. And I would ask the renters like, "Why is my condo so attractive to you?" And they'd be like, "Oh, well, you have a Tempur-Pedic bed. You're pet friendly." That was like the biggest one. You're pet friendly, and your property is designed nicely. Like, Riz designed these properties really nice. It wasn't like, lower Alabama at all. And people would be like, "Well, that's what I want." So they'd come in from New Orleans, Atlanta, wherever for the weekend in the winter, and they'd book our property. So I was like, okay, I think we're onto something. And I think that first year, I think we did like $45,000 or or something like that. And I think my buddy below me maybe did like 35 or 40, right? So even he's like a little like, a little shocked by that. The neighbors are really shocked. So I was like, okay, so this is kind of how it goes into real estate sales for me. When we buy that third house in Miramar, the realtor I'm using claims, and he's definitely like very vocal about being expert vacation rental. And I believed him. I'm like, man, this guy's awesome. He just knows everything. And it was all just, BS. I find out everything about this guy later on, but we're trying to buy this house in Miramar. They're asking $375. And he tells me, oh, this house is only going to make, I think, $32,000 a year, maybe $35 at most. And I'm just like, I don't think so. Like my condo is making more than that. Like it has to make more. This is like a 4-bedroom house. You can see the Gulf. And he's like, no, it won't do it. You ought to buy this place for like, I think it was $680. And I was like, I don't think I can afford that. I don't know if I can even get approved. I was like, I'm surprised I'm even getting approved for $375. And he's like, no, you don't want to buy this. You don't want to buy this. And Riz is like, I don't care. I want to buy it. She was like, this is where we're going to live while we finish our, last year and a half in the military. And then we'll turn it into a rental property or, live there. So we buy this property. Long story short, the first year, I think we did $113,000. I think it was around 113. And the look on that realtor's face when he stopped by my house and asked me how it was doing, he was just like, what? And I'm like, yeah. So, he definitely felt like an idiot. But I think he knew he was just BSing to try to get me to sell a higher, more expensive property. So around that time, a really good buddy, Bobby, he goes, John, you should get your real estate license and we'll start buying these properties up. And I said, okay. So I go get my real estate license and we buy this condo right across from my other condo in the Destin Harbor for like $210,000, dirt cheap. Start remodeling it. And then at that same time, my buddy Brandon, he says he wants to do the same thing. So we actually buy the condo right next to it. Same thing, start gutting them, like down to the studs, remodeling them. And they weren't producing good rental income at all previously. The one that me and Bobby bought, I think they had a tenant in there for, I think $1,100, $1,300 a month for, a 2-bed, 3-bath with a garage and a boat slip. Dirt cheap, but the condition was very poor. So we turned these condos very, very nice. And they wound up producing $60,000+ a year. I think we were doing like 63 to 67, somewhere in between there. And around this time, people are just starting to tell me, like at the unit, how stupid I am for buying these condos. And they're like, what are you doing? You're like getting out of the military within a year. This is the stupidest thing you could do is buy these properties. And I'm like, no, like they're going to make money. And, it was definitely like risky, but it was a calculated risk. Like I was maxing my credit cards out because I'm remodeling 2 condos and a house in Miramar. And I'm like, we're pretty much doing all the remodeling to save money. So credit cards are maxed out, but it was a calculated risk. Like I knew once spring break came, I'd start renting these condos and I'd pay my credit cards off by the summer and I'd be good. And that's exactly what happened. Like I think by Memorial Day or June, credit cards are all paid. So, and then they're cash flowing really good. So I got these condos. Now I got 3 condos, 2 houses. Riz and I are doing everything. We're doing the management, we're doing the cleaning, we're doing the maintenance while we're still active duty. And we have no days off. Every day's a work day. Every day's a remodeling. Every day's building furniture, a cleaning day, whatever it is. We're doing something every day. It's people back then weren't looking to us for advice. They weren't seeing like fancy dinners and nice vehicles and flying around, on trips and stuff like that. Like people just thought we were like kind of stupid, to be honest. Like they're just like, oh, you bought another property? Like, oh, wait till the housing market collapse. What are you going to do then? You're going to be bankrupt. And I was just like, you know what? I just pushed it off the side. I don't even care because I just knew they didn't know what they were talking about because I already proved it on this one condo I had. So around this time, I'm getting a little bit more involved in real estate sales. It wasn't my focus. The Airbnbs were my bread and butter, but as I meet other real estate agents and talk to them, they were like blown away by my rental numbers. They're like, "How are you doing that?" And they'd start asking me for a rental projection for their property, because if I got them a higher rental projection, they could sell the property for more to an investor. Or if I took it over, proved the numbers for a year or two, then it was really easy for them to sell, or it was easy for them to sell to their buyers. So as I start kind of building this reputation in the real estate community for taking a property that maybe was doing 20,000 and turn it to 60,000, the reputation starts growing, because now I'm taking these little condos that we're selling for, 200, 250,000, and now you're able to sell them for 450, 475. And so it really started catching a lot of traction. And then it also started catching a lot of traction with our neighbors and people that knew us. They were like, "Hey, you're doing way better than my management company." They were like, "Can you take my property on?" And I would tell them, like, once I go on terminal leave in the military, I will take your properties on. So like our house in Miramar, it's doing like 113, 115,000. The house directly next door to me, same house, but with a swimming pool. I don't have a pool. His professional management company, I think it was $38,000 for the year, when they told him he was going to do like 60. And he's like, "How are you doing this money?" I'm like, "I don't know, just working at it." And then I actually told him, I was like, "You want me to manage your property?" And he's like, no, I'm going to keep it with a company. So he switches to a different company. This company promised him, I think, 80,000. And I think they did like 40. And then that next year, actually, I took him on. But that's when we just started realizing these professional management companies that tell you they're so professional and their networking so big and they spend so much money on marketing, they're really full of BS. They don't try to really book the property for a high price. They don't care about designing it. Because we would take on a property and we'd be like, "Okay, we'll take it on, but you have to change this furniture, and do this. And if you don't, we wouldn't take you on, because we knew we couldn't produce the money." So it was just like laziness out of these big companies. And what we realized was these big companies, all they do is hire a property manager for like 35, 40,000 a year. And they're in charge of like 60 properties. And they just don't really have an incentive to get out there and get after it. It books for what it books for. They set their pricing very low to book it out 6 months in advance, just to like please the owner. Like, "Oh, look, we got your condo booked." Whereas us, we wouldn't book out 6 months in advance. We'd book out a couple of weeks in advance, but we're doing like triple the rate, quadruple the rate. And then also just the design of the property, which was very time consuming. But at this time, we would do it as like as a way to gain the customer. We'd be like, "Hey, let me spend $5,000-$10,000 and I'll make this property nice and you'll make that money." And we would. So I go on terminal leave November of 2017, and that's when Destin Charm started. So we start the company. We had 5 personal properties. We had 3 condos. Actually, we had 6. We had 3 condos. We had the house in Navarre, the house in Miramar, and then we actually wind up buying a townhouse in 30A for a great price. And actually, I'll get to that in a second. So we're managing a couple properties now. I think we're managing like 5 additional properties for clients, and we're learning a lot. Like there's no good rule book or like a good guide on how to start your business and do a vacation management company. And I'm just trying to learn as I go. Like, I got to apply for this license, I'm trying to do everything by the book, and it's hard. So company's up and running. It's going good, but it's definitely a little tough. And one of the renters, he rents this house every winter, and he goes, I think I'm just gonna buy my own property. Can you sell me one? And I was like, yeah, I'll sell you a property. And that's how I find this townhouse. So his budget was like under 400,000 on 30A, which even in 2018, there's not much. And we go to this townhouse, and the photos of it are really bad. They're just like really dark and gloomy. It's not presented very well, and the rental income is terrible. I think they were advertising like 21,000 in rent. And we go there, and I'm just like, wow, this place is amazing. It's like it backs up to Camp Creek Golf Course and Seacrest Beach. And I'm like, this place is really amazing, and it's cheap, And the guy is just like, I need to make like 25,000 just to break even. And I was like, I pretty much guarantee this will do at least 40,000. But I said, really, I think it's going to do in the 60s, like my condos do. And he's just very nervous. He's like, I just don't think it's going to happen. And I tell him, I said, if you don't buy this, I want to buy it. And he was like, is that like a sales tactic? And I was like, no, I'm serious. Like, I really want to buy it. I'm like, this is a good place. And I'm like, if you don't buy it, I want it. He goes, okay, let me think about it tonight. I'll let you know tomorrow morning. Calls me up in the morning. He goes, John, I don't want it. He goes, I'm too afraid the rental income's not going to be there. He goes, so if you want to buy it, go ahead. Good luck. I said, okay, appreciate it. And me and my boys buy it. Got it for a great price. I think it was like $340,000. And we only do very minimal changes. We change one bed, 3 bar lights, I think a couple of pictures and a chandelier. I mean, this place is like perfect, turnkey, ready to go. And I meet the seller of it. He's the real estate broker, and he's a very successful home builder. And I mean, like, this guy's very successful, like gorgeous multi-million-dollar house in Seagrove, knows what he's doing. And he tells me, he goes, the first year I owned this townhouse, I had a management company. They made me, I think it was $19,000. He goes, I just thought I could do it myself. So he self-manages, and makes 21. And he's like so proud of himself. He's just like, you're going to kill it. And I'm buying this in March. Like, we're closing on it, I think like first week of March, second week of March. And he has it booked all the way to like middle of October for cheap. And he's like, yeah, you're going to love it. I got all these bookings already for you. And I tell him, I said, other than this first week of March, cancel every booking. And he's like, what? Like, why do you want to do that? And I was like, price is too low. And he's like, no, you're crazy. Like, you'll never get the rent you want here. Like, that just doesn't happen. And I was like, no, it's fine. Just cancel everything. So, long story short, that first year, from March to the end of the year, I think we did like mid 60,000. And he just couldn't believe it. And even the guy that passed on buying it, he asked me when he came back that winter, he's like, how'd you do? I'm like, oh, like 60-something thousand. And he was just like, man, I should have bought that. And I was like, yeah, you should have. But that was like another big indicator. Like, I'm like, these people really just don't know what they're doing when it comes to setting these Airbnbs up. And they don't know how to price it right. Whether it's out of laziness or just ignorance, they just don't know what they're doing. Even for a guy who's a real estate broker for a very big company and a home builder, you would think he would have knowledge on how to set this up. And he didn't. So, now we got 6 properties. I think we're managing like 5. And Destin Charms is up and running. Around the same time, a guy I knew who was already in the business had a very big company. I think he had like around 80-something properties. Knew him for a few years. He goes, I like your style with a small company. Let's start our own company. We'll start a small one, but it'll be like 25 houses, but all like 6-bedroom plus, high producing homes. And, we'll make a good chunk of change from this. And I said, sure, let's do that. So we start that business. It actually doesn't kick off till like January of 19. Is that right? Yeah, it kicks off January of 19. And at this time, I had moved down to Naples for law school. So we're down in Naples. we're starting this other business, and it kicks off January of 19. And then by the summer of 19, we had kind of just gone in different directions on how we wanted to do business. But his other company had an offer to sell it, and they wanted to buy our company as well. And the company was only in business for like 6 months, but it was producing a lot of income with these houses. I mean, we even had like one house was like a 9-bedroom Gulf front, producing like 400,000+ a year. So we had really good homes. We had like an 11-bedroom lakefront with Gulf views. It was also producing like I think mid 400,000s. And this company was like, we want to take it all. So I wound up selling, my half of the company over, and that company was gone. But that was actually the first business we sold. And that was, I think it closed out in August of 19. And we did really good on it. Made like 6 figures plus. Wasn't as good as we did on Florida Charms, but it was a good chunk of change. And it really got me a lot of experience when it came to dealing with bigger homes. Because at this time, the biggest home we actually had on Destin Charms was like, I think a 5-bedroom house. So dealing with like Gulf front, more luxury style homes, dealing with those kind of clientels, those renters, it was big learning curve, and it was great to learn that early in the business, and how to just do things on a bigger production level, like housekeeping and maintenance and stuff like that. So that was definitely a good learning point, and it helped me make Destin Charms, Florida Charms, what it was today. All right, so let's see. 19 was actually when I flipped my first property. So wanted to buy a house in Bonita Springs because we loved it down there. And then we decided we wanted to expand the business down there, Destin Charms at the time. And we're going to start doing vacation rentals and sales down there. So my first condo, Destin Charms, I put it up for sale. And I was like, which was hard for me to do because I thought I was going to hang on to these properties forever. Like, this is going to be my retirement fund. And remember, I paid $250,000 for it. I think I remodeled it for, I don't know, $35,000. And then I've been producing all this rental income on it. And in 2018, I actually produced like, I think 76,000 on a 2-bed condo, which is like unheard of. So I was like, well, if I'm going to sell this, I'm going to sell it for a crazy price. And I listed it, I think, at $515. And then within hours, I think it was hours, maybe within 24 hours, I get an offer, and we close it at $475. And I'm just like, this is crazy. I'm making over $200,000 on this flip. I'm making like $225 on the flip, plus all the rent and equity I had paid down. So that was a big eye opener for Riz and I. We're like, wow, if we could just flip like one property every couple of years, like we could just live off of this. And I kind of established, I don't know where I heard it, if I just came up with it in my head, but I said, if I can make 3 years of rent in a sell, I'll sell the property. And that was kind of my game plan. So then I'm like, you know what, let's sell the house in Navarre, because we're only making like $400 a month on it, nothing crazy. And we flipped that one for, I think, $80,000. So, we're getting more than 3 years of rent, because I think the rent was like $1,800, something like that. So we flipped those 2 properties, and we buy the house in Bonita, and start kind of establishing our roots down there in the Naples, Bonita area. Let's see. And then actually at that same time, we now bought this house that I'm in right now in Santa Rosa on the Bay. And, same thing, we get this house for dirt cheap because it was unremodeled. And that was the thing we were doing back then. We couldn't afford the turnkey rental properties. We would buy all the properties that nobody wanted to buy. Like, this house on the Bay was on the market for a year. And I'm like, who doesn't want to buy a half-acre, big house, but it just needs to be remodeled, bayfront? Nobody would touch it. Same with these condos. And what we had realized was most of the investors in this area didn't live here. They lived all out of state, and they don't want to deal with it. They don't want to deal with contractors. And then the other thing is their realtor, they don't want to deal with it. They want to sell them a more expensive turnkey property and be done with it. So we'd come in, these properties would be on market 6 months to a year. We'd lowball them. We'd be down remodeling it for 4 or 5 months, but the equity we built in that property was insane, and that was a huge key to our success with flips. And this is what I try to tell people today. I'm like, you can buy a turnkey rental property and not deal with the headaches, but you're not going to have that equity in the property. And it still it shocks me that people are just like, yeah, I don't care. I'd rather pay like $300,000 more for this property and not deal with a contractor. And I'm just like, interesting, So like a lot of times, like I always say, like, people are like, hey, I want to be like you. I want your advice. And I literally tell them what to do. And then they do the complete opposite. They're like, no, I'd rather spend more money. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's what you want to do. But, just realize when you ask me to sell this property in, a year or two, you're probably not going to have the equity that you want. You're not going to flip it for as much. So, okay. 2019 rolls. And we sell that in one business. And now I think Destin Charms is probably like 17, 18 properties. And we really just start like focusing on like, you know what? We're going to grow this we're going to grow this business. We're going to grow, like I'm going to get my broker's license. Cause at this point I was out of law school. Just wasn't the route I wanted to go, wasn't working out. And we were just too busy with business. So I'm out of law school and we're just growing the business, get my broker's license, start the brokerage end of 19. And we're just focusing on growing the business and making those connections with people, and the business starts growing. Really good. COVID hits, definitely a scary time because now we're basically shut down and we're just processing so much. It was just Riz and I, and we had one employee. That was it. So we're just, super, super busy with that. But then with COVID, it becomes a blessing because once they lift the rental ban, the business just like it doubles. People are looking for management companies to manage their property because a lot of these companies actually went out during COVID. They went like straight up bankrupt. So, here we are, small like boutique company. Reputation is starting to grow a little bit. And I mean, we go from, I think like literally 18, maybe 20 properties to at the end of 2020, I think we're almost 70 properties. Like it was exploding. And real estate sales are exploding. The number of employees are growing and we're doing a good job. I don't think we bought any real estate during that time. I actually started selling real estate, started selling my condos I had bought with my friends because we're just getting, crazy prices on it because the market was so high. And we're starting to build the, Bonita market a little bit. I think we get, three vacation rentals down there, 2 or 3. So business is growing 2020. And then 2021 business even just doubles again. I think it actually maybe like tripled. So we actually reduced the amount of vacation rentals we had. We reduced it from like, I think it was 67 or 68 down to like 35. But what we were doing is we were selling these properties. So a lot of these little small properties like my own condos or condos I had sold to people, they had gained so much equity. They'd buy them for like 200,000. Now they're worth 400, 450. So I would tell them like, hey, let's sell these little condos you got and then take that money and put it into a big home. And you'll make more money and, it's less for me to manage. And that's what started happening. We would take like 3 or 4 condos, sell them, replace it with one big house. And that's why the downsize happened, but our rental income was increasing. So people would be like, oh man, is your business, like, is it not doing good because you just chopped your properties in half? I'm like, no, we're actually producing like 1.5 million more in rent with less properties. So we really started to tighten our standards on what we would take on and manage, because it doesn't matter if it's a 10-bedroom house or a 1-bedroom condo, it takes the same time. It's the same amount of questions, inquiries, and stuff like that. For our side of the house, for housekeeping, it's obviously different, but for us managing everything, it takes the same amount of time. I'm still dealing with the owner and things like that. And that was also a big thing with our company, was dealing with the owners directly. Most management companies don't do that. They have like an owner relations team. So I'm building these relationships with these owners, and I'm helping their realtor as well, because they feel comfortable talking to me as an owner. They know I know what I'm talking about. I'm not just some property manager making $15 an hour, and I'm showing them that. So they would be excited because I'd make them money, and then I'd give them back to their realtor, and then the realtor would sell them another house, and it just became this revolving door. Like, the realtors were like, dude, you're awesome. You're not trying to steal my clients. You're actually making my clients money. They're happy. I'm happy. You're happy. Like, we're all making money. It's a great business. And that's how it should be. Because a lot of management companies would try to steal like other realtors' clients, and I made it a point like, hey, I'm not going to do that. So that was a big key to my success, was these other realtors would start, they would trust me and pass my info to other agents, because we weren't doing paid advertising or anything like that. No billboards up on the highway. So the business grows great for 2021. I mean, like, that's when we, like, end of 17, the business was like $60,000. And then at the end of 2021, it was 61 million plus. And it was just like, this is crazy. I can't believe we did this in 4 years. We turned this into this, multi-million-dollar company. And it was such a good feeling, just kind of coming like from Riz and I, our background from, literally nothing, dirt poor, no real estate experience, to now we're like, we just like proved ourselves. This is huge. So we're gearing up for 2022, getting everything set, like looking internally at everything that we could be doing better, getting everything ready to go for spring break. And this company, AvantStay, they approached us to purchase the company. And I should say, we've had companies try to buy us since 2020. Big company, I mean, like Vacasa, private equity firms, because they would see our company and they're like, oh, they want to buy you as you're kind of like just starting to gain traction. And they'd make good offers, but we just weren't interested. It just never really appealed to us with the offer and how they wanted to do things. And a lot of the owners that we manage, were friends of mine from the military, or, we developed these relationships over the years. And they'd always tell me, like, please don't ever sell to this company. Like, I don't want to be in a big, corporate style, company where the rental income is less. And that was kind of the thing. These big companies, they would look at I'd show them my P&L statements, end of year statements, and they'd make me these really good offers, because they would, like, this one multi-billion worldwide company, he's like, John, I'm gonna be honest with you. He goes, our average income on a house, I think it was like $80,000 in the Destin 38 area. He's like, we're averaging $80,000 a house. And he goes, we averaged out all your properties, and I got condos and houses. And he was like, your average, I think, was like mid 160s. And he was just like, this is why we want to buy you. This is why we're giving you a bigger offer than what we normally offer. And he goes, we want these houses. We want this company. So, which is a great feeling, because obviously we're doing something right. So this company, AvantStay, they approached me, actually as I'm buying my airplane in Vegas. Riz and I are in Vegas. I'm doing like my transition training to qualify my certification for this plane, and I get in talks with them, and they're like, hey, we heard about you, like, through the grapevine. Like your website, like the properties. We just want to look at your financial statements and see if you're like the real deal. So they look at our financial statements, and it was like 2 days later, I think it was. I remember getting done with my flight training, literally like in the Uber going back to the hotel, the Cosmo or Bellagio, and I look at the offer and I'm like, wow, like this is an incredible offer. And it was also the way they approached it. Like, they had told us, like, we like what you built. We don't want to change it. We just want to put our name brand on it. And I was like, okay. So, I really like that. And they give us this like incredible offer, and I'm just like, wow. And Riz and I are kind of talking about it, and she's like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, that's Marriott. That's Marriott money. Like that's full on retirement. Like we don't ever have to work again. So she's like countering. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course. So I contact the person. I'm like, hey, it's a good offer, but we definitely want a lot more, and we counter it. And he goes, I tell you what, we're gonna come back with one final offer. If you want it, take it. If you don't, don't. And they jumped this offer up so much. I mean, they almost doubled the offer. Like it was crazy. Like it was millions more. And I was just like, oh wow. Like I thought they were just gonna come up like a couple $100,000. And I was like, wow, And I think it was the same day actually. And we took it and started that process. Now that was a very in-depth process. Like when I sold my previous company, I just sold my half over to my partner, and my partner dealt with all the closing. This was like super in-depth. I mean, phone calls every day. It was stressful. Accountants, everything. Like I mean, they scrutinized everything. Like they went through it a fine comb. And then I want to say probably within that first month, they actually weren't going to buy the realty at the time. And then within that, maybe a few weeks of the purchase offer for the vacation rentals, they approached and they were like, we want to buy the brokerage too. And they're like, we want you to be our first broker for Florida. And I was like, wow. So they upped the offer to buy the brokerage, more money. And then they basically told me, you're not this big sales broker, which I'm not. I don't have, I'm not selling hundreds of millions of dollars a year, not even close. But what they wanted was they wanted a broker who understood vacation rentals, who understood how to speak to investors, who understood how to remodel, how to design, someone who understood everything about the vacation rental market, but also could do sales. And that's why they decided, to basically pick Florida Charms to begin with. But they were just kind of doing their due diligence in the background, doing like, social media checks and just asking people about who I was. Same on Riz. They wanted to know everything about us. And they're talking to other companies, other realtors, other brokers. And they were just like, yeah, we like what we see. You definitely know what you're talking about. You're young, you're driven, and we want you to be the broker for Florida. So I was like, okay. So that's how that happened. And, I didn't have to take that if I didn't want to. Like, they're like, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to, we'll just buy the company and, all good. And you can just, retire. But Riz and I were like, no, like, let's just, let's keep working. Like, this is a good opportunity. And just to represent, like a multi-billion-dollar company at age, 34, I was like, I feel kind of stupid to pass up this opportunity. I think it's going to continue to grow. So we sell the company. May 1st we sold that company. And then we did the full handover like October. It was actually October 3rd, but October 1st we do the full transfer to where we're not involved in the daily operations no more, which is great because it frees up the time for us to help our friends more and guide them, and continue growing. I don't think I hit on that during this recording, but the big thing that really helped us grow was it wasn't just us doing our own flips. That's what established the foundation. We would do our own vacation rentals and our own personal flips instead of telling people why you should go buy it and not doing it ourselves. So we're actually practicing what we preach. And that was attractive to people. They're like, you're actually doing this. You know what you're talking about. You're not just repeating what you hear. And then over our 4-year journey, we would take our friends and make them a lot of money. A lot of them, being military friends. And then they would tell their friends and their friends and their friends. So the business organically grew that way because it wasn't doing paid advertising. I wasn't, cold calling people. It just wasn't my style. So by helping our friends grow with us, it established this whole different kind of like, I guess, category of a business. We weren't just a sales team. Like, hey, you should buy this. Like, no, we're selling it to you. We're managing it. We're advising you throughout the years until it's time to sell it or, buy another one. And that was huge to our success, and still is to this day. We've literally turned people into millionaires by doing this over the years, and we're happy to do that. And for me, it was like job satisfaction, because going from like an operator in the military to real estate, it's actually like, in my opinion, like a downgrade. Like here I am, like jumping out of planes, blowing stuff up, doing all this cool guy shit, flying out the side of helicopters, rolling around with, Green Berets and SEALs and stuff like that. And I'm like, this is a cool job. It's all I ever wanted since I was like childhood, was just to be like some type of special operator. And it was very fulfilling, right? Like you're helping a lot of people, you're doing a lot of good, things like that. So it was a very fulfilling job. And I get in real estate, and it wasn't like super fulfilling for me, like on the sales side, but what was fulfilling for me was when I'd make my friends the money and see how that would change their life. Like it was such a good feeling when I would send like a direct deposit to their account for like $10,000 for like rental income. And then like them thanking me like, dude, you're helping me out so much. I appreciate it. And I love that feeling. It became like a drug for me, I guess you could say. Like it was like addicting, and I loved it because I would see my friends posting on social media, or they could, maybe get out of the military and do something else, go to school, whatever it is. It was just life changing for them, because once you get that additional rental income in your life, like a whole nother salary, it's life changing. And I knew it because that's what happened with Riz and I. And when we had just the Destin Charms condo, that extra, $50,000 a year was basically another military salary, because we're making like probably $55,000 a year. So it just gives us a lot of breathing room, and it just starts, allowing you to not be stuck in your current job. Like you have to do your job, make your money to be able to buy a property. But once you start getting a few properties, you don't have to work anymore. And that was like with our condo and our one house, the Miramar Charms, Destin Charms. We're pulling like 170, 180,000 on 2 properties. And with like both mortgages combined, all expenses, we're probably looking something like $70,000, $80,000 all in. So I'm basically still able to clear $100K like cash flow to me, even after paying, mortgage and all that. So it was life changing for us. I didn't have to go contract, overseas 6 months a year, things like that. I could go pursue like, hey, I want to go to law school, or, I want to do this, do that. And becoming financially free was such a huge theme. And that was by age 30. I got out of the military at 29. So like I was financially free. And then, then my time became free. I can pick and choose what I want to do with my time. And I think that was a bigger thing for me than just being financially free, was just having the ability to control my time whenever I want. If I want to go here, I'm going to go do it. If I want to go do this, I'm going to go do it. And even more so now that we sold the big management company and the brokerage, my time has just freed up significantly. And I can pick and choose like what I want to do. Like, hey, you know what? I'm going to start this little podcast show and kind of get the story out there to inspire my friends and help out other people to get to where I'm at. Because I don't think I know anyone that's like, oh, I don't want to be financially free or time free. Like everybody wants those two things. They want to be in control of their finances and control of their time. And that's why most people get into real estate. I mean, even doctors and lawyers and other rich business people I know, CEOs, they all want to be free of their job, and they just want to live off the rental income. And that's what I want to help you do. That's the whole point of this. That was even why we started, the Howard Consulting after we sold the 2 companies, was just to help guide people to get where they want to go. And whether that's, just owning one little Airbnb property, making some good income, or if that's, owning your own company, whatever it is, we want to help you get there. because it's not fun if just one person's at the top with all the money. We want everybody up there with us. It's more fun when we can all just, hey, let's go get in the plane and, fly to Europe this weekend, whatever. That's what we want. So, let's see. I think that's not too bad for the first episode. I know it's a lot of talking, a lot of things like that. I was going to try to keep it kind of short, but like I said, in the future, I want to get other people on here, get their story out there, where it's not just me talking, but we're both interacting and making it a little bit more fun. And then let me know what you guys want to hear as well. Riz and I have got that request over the years, like hey, we guys do like a live Q&A and things like that. So send us questions. Happy to answer. Pick our brains. That's what this is all about, and have a little fun with it. So yeah, I think that's all I got. Yeah, that's all I got. Later. Bye.